Hey, Virgo, the person who wronged you, betrayed you, walked away from you, or treated you poorly is currently experiencing direct consequences of their choices. And those consequences aren't abstract future punishment, they're present reality, creating suffering they can't escape from or minimize no matter how they try. And central to their suffering is loss of you. They thought they could do what they did and move on unaffected, thought they could treat you badly and find better elsewhere, thought they could walk away and not look back, thought ending or damaging connection with you would create relief or freedom or opportunity, but reality is delivering different lesson entirely. What they're discovering is that you weren't replaceable. That connection you provided wasn't common. That role you played in their life wasn't easily filled by someone else. That losing you created void they can't seem to fill no matter who they try to fill it with. And that recognition that they had something good and they destroyed it through their own choices is eating them alive. Let me describe what karma looks like when it's actively operating in someone's life right now. First manifestation is regret that intensifies instead of fading. Normal breakups or endings involve initial regret that diminishes over time as people adjust to new reality and remember why ending was necessary. But this person's regret is growing, getting stronger, becoming more painful as time passes instead of less painful, because every day without you, every experience they have, every person they encounter reinforces what they lost. They thought distance would create perspective that would validate their choice. But distance is creating perspective that reveals their choice was mistake, and they can't undo it, can't go back, can't reverse consequences they set in motion. That irreversibility is its own torture. Second manifestation is comparison that destroys every potential replacement. They're meeting people, maybe dating, maybe pursuing new connections, maybe trying to convince themselves they're moving on successfully, but everyone they meet gets measured against you. And everyone comes up short, not because you're perfect or because they've idealized you unrealistically, but because whatever you provided, whether that was understanding, chemistry, loyalty, depth, laughter, safety, was specific and rare. And they're discovering that rare things don't get replaced easily, that most people won't meet them the way you met them. That what felt common when they had it is revealed as exceptional now that they don't. Third manifestation is isolation. Even when they're surrounded by people, they can be in relationships, in friendships, in social situations, but they feel alone because none of those connections reach the depth you reached. They're performing connection while internally experiencing disconnection, smiling while feeling empty, pretending to be engaged while actually feeling isolated in ways they didn't feel when they were with you. And that isolation is punishment for taking real connection for granted, for not valuing it when they had it, for choosing poorly and losing access to a person who actually saw them and actually cared. Fourth manifestation is watching you thrive, or at minimum survive perfectly well without them. They thought you'd fall apart, thought you needed them more than they needed you, thought your life would diminish without their presence in it. Let's pause here. This reflection invites you to consider who treated you poorly while acting like you needed them more than they needed you. Maybe ex who dumped you with confidence that you'd come crawling back. Maybe friend who ended friendship assuming you'd be devastated and lost without them. Maybe colleague who betrayed you thinking your career would suffer while theirs advanced. But you didn't fall apart. You're not crawling back. You're not devastated beyond function. You're fine. Or better than fine, you're actually better without them than you were with them. And they're watching that, seeing through social media or through mutual connections or through direct observation that you're doing well, that you're happy or at least handling life competently without them. And your wellness is mirror reflecting their assumptions back as wrong. They thought they were irreplaceable to you, but you're demonstrating they were actually quite replaceable. That reversal of expectation, them discovering they're more affected by loss than you are, is ego death, is humiliation, is forced recognition that they weren't as central to your life as they believed or as they wished they had been. Fifth manifestation is consequences in their new situations. Whatever they left you for or whoever they left you for isn't delivering what they expected. New relationship that seemed exciting is revealing itself as shallow or problematic. New opportunity that seemed better is showing its limitations. New life they thought would be improvement is actually downgrade in ways they didn't anticipate. And they can't blame those disappointments on you because you're not there. They created new circumstances themselves. So failures of new circumstances are purely their responsibility. This reflection invites you to consider, what did the person who wronged you think they were moving toward that probably isn't living up to expectations? Loving you from afar suffering is a specific phrase that indicates their feelings didn't stop just because they walked away or because they behaved badly. They still love you, or at minimum, they still want you, still think about you constantly, still miss you, still desire connection they destroyed. But they're experiencing that love or want from distance because they created the distance through their choices. And experiencing love you can't act on for person you wronged who probably won't take you back even if you tried is particular form of torture. They're watching you from afar through social media, through mutual friends, through whatever channels allow them to know you still exist and are living your life without them. And that watching is compulsion. They can't stop, even though it hurts, even though every glimpse reminds them of what they lost, even though they know they should move on and stop monitoring your life. They can't help themselves. Your addiction, they're trying to quit, but keep relapsing into checking on. And if you're doing well, if you're happy, if you're with someone else, that's agony for them. Proof that they're not necessary to your happiness. Proof that you've moved on in ways they haven't been able to move on. If you're not doing well visibly, that creates different torture guilt about having contributed to your struggles, desire to help or fix that they know they don't have right to act on. Either way, they're suffering. And suffering is direct result of choices they made. This reflection invites you to consider, do you feel satisfaction knowing person who wronged you is suffering, or does their suffering make you uncomfortable? Let me address what you should and shouldn't do with knowledge that karma is operating on person who wronged you. Don't gloat publicly. Don't post things designed to rub their face in your happiness or their mistakes. Don't perform wellness or success specifically to hurt them even if their suffering feels deserved. That keeps you attached to them through negative bond, keeps your energy focused on them instead of on your actual life, prevents you from fully moving on because you're still performing for their benefit or detriment. Don't reach out to check if they're suffering. Don't contact them to ask how they're doing, hoping to hear they're miserable. Don't fish for information through mutual friends about their current state. That gives them power by revealing you still care enough to check, and it opens door for them to try to reconnect if they sense you're still invested. Don't take them back just because they're suffering. If they reach out with apology or confession of regret, you don't owe them reconciliation just because they're finally recognizing what they lost. Suffering doesn't automatically equal growth. Regret doesn't automatically equal changed behavior. Someone can be very sorry and still be the same person who would hurt you same way again once suffering faded. Do focus on your life independent of their karma. Whether they're suffering or thriving is ultimately their business, not yours. Your job is living well, healing fully, moving forward completely, not monitoring their consequences or ensuring they suffer adequately. Do maintain boundaries if they try to return. If their suffering drives them to reach out, you're allowed to say no, allowed to say you've moved on, allowed to say suffering doesn't create obligation for you to relieve that suffering by giving them another chance. And do trust that you don't need to enforce karma. You don't need to make sure they suffer enough or learn proper lesson. Natural consequences are handling that without your intervention. Your job is healing and rebuilding, not monitoring their punishment. This reflection invites you to consider, what would complete closure look like for you? Them suffering, them apologizing, them simply being irrelevant to your emotional state. What karma actually means in this context needs clarification because it's not cosmic punishment administered by universe with moral agenda. Karma is consequences, natural results of choices made. They chose to wrong you, to betray trust, to end connection poorly, to treat you badly. Those choices create results. Result of betraying trustworthy person is losing access to trustworthy person, and discovering trustworthy people are rare. Result of ending good relationship poorly is living without that good relationship, and discovering good relationships are hard to find. Result of taking someone for granted is that someone being gone, and discovering you actually valued them more than you realized. Those aren't supernatural punishments. Those are just logical outcomes of their behavior. And logical outcomes often hurt worse than supernatural punishment would because they can't be appealed to higher power, can't be negotiated, can't be blamed on anyone but themselves. Their suffering is self-created through chain of choices they made freely. That's what makes it karma instead of just bad luck. And your role in their karma is simply absence. You're not doing anything to them. You're just not available to them anymore. And your absence is what creates suffering because they valued you more than their behavior indicated. This reflection invites you to consider, does knowing their suffering is self-created through their own choices make you feel differently about it than if it were random misfortune? Let me address whether they'll actually learn from this karma, or whether they'll just suffer without growth, because suffering alone doesn't guarantee wisdom. Some people experience consequences of their actions and actually learn. They recognize patterns, they take accountability, they change behavior so they don't repeat mistakes. Their suffering becomes teacher. If person who wronged you is that type, their current suffering is transforming them, making them a better person, teaching them to value what matters, creating genuine growth that might make them worthy of connection with someone else eventually, even if not with you again. Other people experience consequences and learn nothing. They suffer, but they externalize blame. They regret outcome, but not choices. They wish situation was different, but they don't change behaviors that created situation. If person who wronged you is that type, their suffering is wasted, not producing growth, just producing pain that will eventually fade without creating lasting change. You probably don't know which type they are, and honestly, it doesn't matter for your healing whether they learn or not. What matters is you learning what you need to learn about what you deserve, about what you'll tolerate, about what real connection looks like versus what performance of connection looks like, about your own worth. Their growth or lack thereof is their journey. Yours is yours. You remain in complete control of how you relate to knowledge that person who wronged you is suffering. You can feel satisfaction, indifference, compassion, or some complicated mixture. The power is yours. It always has been. You may notice reading this has created complex emotional response. Maybe satisfaction that they're getting what they deserve. Maybe discomfort with feeling satisfied about someone's pain. Maybe validation that your worth is being recognized, even if too late. Whatever you're feeling, honor it. Take what resonates, softly release the rest. Trust yourself. Before we close, I want to ask you something. When someone who wronged you experiences consequences, does that create closure for you, or does it keep you attached to their story? Drop your honest response in the comments. And if person who wronged you came back apologizing and suffering, would you give them another chance, or is that chapter permanently closed? Karma is operating on person who did you dirty, and they are loving you from afar while suffering. And that suffering is natural consequence of their choices creating loss. They're finally recognizing as significant. But whether they learn from suffering or just experience pain without growth is their journey, not yours.